Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. What I'd like to share today is what it's like to experience 5D consciousness even while we're living in the 3D, 4D world. This is possible to do, and it's wonderful to discover because it's probably going to take a few years and maybe even a bit more before the Earth is going to be making its final shift into 5D. And with all the fear and anger and despair that's occurring in the world today, learning how to live in 5D consciousness now is all the more important for us to do, I think. Even if you can only experience it for short periods of time, you can begin to change your reality. You can change your experience in your everyday life. You can actually change what happens to you because consciousness creates reality. So I'm going to be sharing my own experiences of this consciousness here, along with what other people have also described. But to be clear, I want to say it's not like I'm constantly in this consciousness at this point, not all the time, but it is happening more and more for me. And I've realized that the more I focus on it when it does happen, the more often I find myself there and for longer periods of time. And I'm hoping you will relate to these experiences because you may already be having them too, maybe without realizing it. And you too could learn how to increase these wonderful experiences. What's important, as I say, is when you do experience any aspect of 5D consciousness, you want to recognize it and then focus on it with strong emotion, especially with gratitude, which is a really powerful force, because this is what will begin to create a new neural pathway in your brain, making it easier and easier to tap into this consciousness as time goes on. And in addition, when you focus on these experiences, the quantum field around you will register this and then begin to give you more and more of it. As I'm sure you know, what you focus your thoughts on, especially with strong emotion, is what the law of attraction is going to give back to you. Before I start, let me make it clear, in case there's any confusion you may have about what 5D is. 5D is not a place we will be going to. We're still going to be here on Earth. But what will have changed is the consciousness everyone and everything existing on Earth will be functioning from. And this is what will make everything totally different for us and what will determine how our reality works, what possibilities exist, what experiences are available to us. So, okay, that's clear. Let me describe some aspects of what living in 5D consciousness can be like. I think some people believe that living in 5D means you're always feeling blissed out, totally expanded and high, ecstatic. Well, in my experience, and from what I understand from other people too, is that these incredible experiences of expanded bliss do happen when you're functioning in 5D consciousness, but they're experiences that come and go. They kind of punctuate your everyday consciousness from time to time, kind of like what you may already be experiencing in your life. The sensation in your everyday life when you're in 5D is kind of more like a quiet type of bliss that just runs through your consciousness. Your mood is really smooth, clear, balanced, peaceful, happy, harmonious. And you're just naturally optimistic about things. There's no stress, no tension. Your body is basically relaxed. But very importantly, you're not dependent on any outer circumstances, events, or relationships to feel this way. It's just there as a natural, basic, default mood. You wake up in the morning feeling this way. There's no sense of dragging yesterday into the new day. It's a brand new day, clear and free, waiting for you to experience new things you can look forward to. It's a great feeling. And your monkey mind, you know, that voice that never stops talking inside your head, that's basically gone. There's just a feeling of clear spaciousness in your mind. And when you tune in, there can be a sense of exhilarating inner freedom with this. Because what's amazing is there's no sense of mental or emotional suffering, no feeling or thoughts of lack or limitation. They no longer exist for you. There's just a complete lack of all negative emotions, an absence of fear, anger, depression, hurt, shame, judgment, self-doubt, loneliness. They're just not there. But it's not like there are no more bumps in the road. You know, you're still in a 3D, 4D world. So there's still going to be stuff you experience that shows you that you have to learn something maybe, or that you need to continue waking up and evolving. But what's wonderful is when something doesn't go well, there's no sense of guilt or feeling that you've done something wrong. When it becomes clear you've said or done something that's off track somehow or hurtful to someone, it's kind of more of an experience of, oh, whoops, that didn't work. And then, in a neutral and compassionate way, you take action to redirect your words or actions back to a position of right action, whatever that might be, to set things right. Your integrity and the importance of transparency are what guide you. There's no self-doubt or self-judgment that arises. You're just correcting a mistake. Everyone makes them, and you're just correcting one you've made. There's no guilt or shame about it. There's just basically an easy acceptance of what is, no painful longing, no desires for anything to be really different from how it is. You can still have hopes and plans to create something new or different, you know, in your future or in your life, and work toward them. But what's different is that the constant niggling dissatisfaction that's always kind of present in your 3D, 4D consciousness, usually on a subconscious level, is gone. Whatever is happening in your life really is just fine. And there's a curiosity about whatever might be next, even an anticipation, knowing it's probably going to be interesting and engaging for you. So is any of this familiar to you, even for maybe just moments at a time? But what's really interesting to me is that at times in 5D, it's not that it's just you that seems different. It's like the physical world around you can look and feel changed too. You're not actually in a different place. You can still see all the same objects and people around you, but they're all somehow vibrating with life you've never been aware of before when you've seen them through your 3D, 4D eyes. It's almost as if all the cells and everything are lit up and kind of dancing. Somehow your senses are more enhanced. Colors can look brighter. You may even see new colors that don't exist in the lower dimensions. Music is somehow more beautiful. Things you touch are more interesting and pleasant to your touch. And strangely enough, there can also be a sense that everything you see is happy. Even objects like trees and flowers, the door, the table, your printer. And all of this happens naturally without even getting high on a drug. In addition, there seems to be no separation between anyone or anything and you. There's no sense of the small egoic self present. In a way, it can feel as if there is nothing of you left, just pure consciousness expressing through a physical body. Or that you're just a point of awareness in that ocean of pure consciousness. And when this happens, there's an expansive sense of freedom, a knowing of the vastness of yourself, a huge spaciousness. Or there can sometimes be a feeling of being a very large and expanded energetic form, where there's a sense that there's no time and no space. There's just a vibrating joy that sings throughout your entire being. And this comes with a profound knowing of your oneness with all people, with all of existence. There's no sense of separation or duality. You're just one with all of creation. Do you recognize any of these kinds of experiences? What makes all these experiences possible when you're in 5D consciousness is that your sense of identification has drastically altered. Rather than being identified with your ego self or the body-mind self, the human self, you pretty much just know you're a multidimensional being, a soul, the eternal aspect of who you are. You're aware that you're a soul that is expressing itself currently in a human body. And it's not that you have a soul, you are a soul. And this is not just an intellectual understanding of this, which you can easily have when you're in 4D consciousness. It's the experience of it, the knowing and the living of it. When you're in 5D consciousness, your understanding of the nature of the universe and life is usually quite different from what you believe you know in the third and fourth dimensions. You know how when you're in 3D, 4D, the world never quite feels totally safe? How there's always something that could happen to you? So you always kind of have some sort of little fear about survival on this subconscious level. Well, when you're in fifth dimensional consciousness, all that feeling is absent. You just have a simple trust in life, a knowing that the universe is inherently benevolent, and that, of course, you're going to be taken care of, one way or another. There's no anxiety, no fear about this. You feel precious and valuable for the unique contribution of consciousness that you offer to the world. Also, when you're in 3D, 4D, you know how you always have a sense of separation from other people? You may feel close to them, even intimate with them, but ultimately, since you're in separate bodies, there's always some sense of aloneness that just kind of hovers just below your awareness, right? Well, in 5D, that whole sense of separation is gone. As I say, you experience the sensation of oneness with everyone. This oneness is not just a sense of connection you feel to other people. It's more that you know beyond a doubt that at your core, you are made of exactly the same substance as everyone else. A very primal essence made of source light and source love. Everyone is a unique drop of this consciousness, but our innermost essence is exactly the same. We are all source. And you know, at the core of 5D consciousness, what's really happening is there's an expansion and openness in the heart, an outpouring of love that comes from your whole being. There's a warmth, an emotional receptivity, and a flowing of love towards all you encounter and for all of life, including yourself. There's a total absence of judgment or separation. You just feel like a field of love within and around you. And at times, something that could be called a love attack can just suddenly happen. When a surge of love just pours through you with a power that can just bring tears to your eyes. There's a graciousness that moves through you, which makes way for a deep desire to just be of service wherever you are. You just know this is your natural state of being, that having an open heart is innately natural to you. In 5D, you're also aware of how love is not just an emotion. It's a powerful force. And it's at the core of all existence. It's part of what you're made of. And so your inner GPS has shifted from your rational mind to your heart. You realize your mind is good for helping you with certain things, like what to eat for lunch or what you're going to wear that day, how to balance your checkbook or program your phone, those kinds of things. But your mind is much too limited for making big decisions about your life. Your heart's wisdom is much more reliable. What actually guides your every action is unconditional love. And you know that in being constantly centered in your heart, you also experience a natural, unconditional love for everyone. There's no more judgment. There's no working at trying to stop yourself from judging either. It's just absent. The love you feel for people has no attachment to it. It's a clear, more detached type of love with no strings attached, no expectations or demands with it. In fact, when you're in 5D, you don't really feel any need for anything much in relationships. You don't need approval from other people. You don't need their love or connection to feel good about yourself or to feel lovable or valuable or important. You enjoy all those things that people give to you. Their love is much appreciated and valued, but you have no real need for it. And therefore, you have no expectations or demands on them to meet your needs, because these are all met by your own self-love and your knowing of your inherent value. A relationship without the agreement to take responsibility for each other's needs might sound from a third or fourth dimensional point of view as if it would be a dry, unemotional, and disconnected type of relationship. But when you're in 5D consciousness, you realize that without these emotional types of demands, you can have a warm, loving, and highly fulfilling relationship with people that runs smoothly without a lot of drama. And then, of course, very importantly, your love for other people springs solely from your caring and compassion for them, not from a need that they provide you with something in return. It's an unconditional love, free of demands or expectations that someone act in a certain way or be something different from who they are in order for you to love them. Like I say, there's actually no emotional need for anything in a relationship, and yet paradoxically, it all seems to be there for you to enjoy. The love, the connection, the respect. You already feel all of this for yourself, so people sense this and they automatically give it to you too. That's always pretty much how it works. People tend to treat us like we treat ourselves. Now, of course, there are always differences in how people prefer to relate, and boundaries they feel comfortable with, and things that are important to them that aren't to you, and vice versa. And so compromises do need to happen. But when you're in 5D, there's an ability to work things out easily without the usual demands and neediness and resentment you so often have to deal with when you're in a 3D, 4D kind of relationship. So, are you noticing any of these kinds of changes in your relationships? Again, even if it's just once in a while, this is a sign of your evolving consciousness. So, another thing you can notice in 5D is how miracles can happen. When you're in 3D, 4D consciousness, you can often feel caught in the limitations of what your rational mind thinks it knows, based on your experiences from the past and what it thinks it just knows. And the limitations you believe in when you're in this consciousness can often seem, solid and certain. And there's little or no belief that you can get around some of them. Well, in 5D, you understand that what might sound impossible to your lower dimensional awareness is actually very possible. You understand that there are actually no limitations to what you can create. You know that you inherently possess the power to bring about creations you are inwardly directed to manifest. You just know somehow that anything is possible. It may take some time, but it will happen. You know that what might be considered magic or miraculous in a lower dimension is totally natural when you're in 5D. Magical, miraculous things just seem to happen. Another interesting thing you can note when you're in 5D is that you find you're pretty much living completely in the present moment. Not just present time, but actually in the moment itself. When you're here, all those low vibrational thoughts of past and future are irrelevant, and they're just not even here. You have a trust in the constant, effortless flow of life in each moment as it presents itself to you. And you find it's a very comfortable and productive zone to function in. The same number of events can happen in your daily life, but there's a sensation of timelessness. You flow from one event to the next. There's no frustration about how things are unfolding. Even if something happens you would have previously thought was terrible. There's just a knowing that everything's going to work out, and you're going to just be fine. You're neutral, accepting, empowered, and peaceful about how your life is unfolding. You trust the flow. And it can be really interesting sometimes to notice that when you're immersed in the present moment, you'll suddenly remember an appointment or something else you've scheduled for that day that you've totally forgotten about until this moment. But then you see it's exactly the right time that you need to remember it. You see that without fail, you are always somehow reminded precisely when you need to remember something you've scheduled to occur at a given time. And so you're never really early or late when you function in this present moment zone. By the clock, you might seem off to some extent, but as for being right on time, for the circumstance you're in, it's always right on time for you and for any other people involved in a meeting or appointment with you. It's a really cool thing to have this happen. But there's another kind of weird thing that can happen around time when you're in 5D, and that's that all time, as you've known it, just kind of disappears. You begin to realize that linear time is just one form of time, because you discover that you can now somehow have access to any moment, to all timelines, past, present, and future, and that you can even change things that happen in them. And another thing that's really weird around time is that you can feel a sense that rather than you moving through your life as it passes through time, your life is actually flowing through you. You're just there, and everything is moving through you. Another thing you can notice is when you're in 5D consciousness, your focus is often on creating something interesting or maybe co-creating with other people. It's a very alive and creative kind of consciousness. You also find you love learning and expanding your awareness, and you feel a sense of wonder and excitement at times, even with the smallest things you discover or experience. You know that feeling? Oh, and beauty. You can become undone when you're witnessing beauty. It just stirs up such love and joy in your heart. You also enjoy the adventure of exploring and discovering new worlds, both in physical form and those beyond form. And what's interesting is that although you're following what interests and excites you, like I said, your focus is in all your activities also somehow includes thoughts about how you might serve others with what you're doing. It's just a natural aspect of everything you do. In essence, you're totally enjoying life that's filled with joy, ease, peace, freedom, and a sense of fulfillment. And this, of course, is quite different probably from your experience in 3D, 4D consciousness, because there's no more irritating dissatisfaction with your life. No more waiting for something better to happen. In general, when living in 5D, there's just a buoyant optimism about life, a feeling of being totally alive and aware. You're confident that whatever is ahead for you is going to be just as wonderful, intriguing, and delightful as life generally is for you. So, this is a description I have of what 5D consciousness can be like. I find it's great to explore this because they're crazy transitional times we're living in, aren't they? I mean, there's so much change and uncertainty occurring, and so many people are freaking out, not understanding what's going on. And yet, despite all this chaos and disruption occurring around us, those of us who are destined to shift into the fifth dimension in this lifetime are making this shift into a higher consciousness really rapidly at this point. And it is possible now to live more and more from a 5D perspective and avoid the despair and anxiety that's so prevalent in the collective consciousness. The high-frequency waves of light that are now flooding the planet at this point make this so much easier. You just need to somehow tune into them and then see if you can ride them. So just remember, if you can just focus with powerful emotion, especially with gratitude, on those times when you're feeling even a part, any part of this higher consciousness I've described, you will begin to experience those times more and more. And this will not only assist you in your own shift into 5D, it will also help the collective consciousness. Don't ever underestimate the power you have to influence the collective consciousness. Remember the 100 monkey principle. So, I'd like to know, what are your experiences of 5D consciousness? Are they similar to what I've described here, or different in some way? Is there something important I've missed? Please, if you feel drawn to do so, leave your comments below. Thank you. And meanwhile, have a beautiful, light-filled 5D day.